Yeah, right now on big national discussion groups in the Green Party, right, social media, I would say one of the main conflicts or contradictions is that someone will say things that what you have said, like, we need to reduce our consumption, we need to get off this treadmill, right? We need to simplify our lives, we need to get green, And then someone will come right back at him and say, well, you can't do that. You're constrained by the system, right? The corporations force you into certain consumption pattern, right?
Sure.
Try to get somewhere without going in a vehicle that runs on fossil fuel, right?
Right.
I'm always looking for the solar-powered light rail. They can never find the station, right?
Right.
So, and it gets really kind of hostile and uncivil after a while. And then, like the system change, people will say, well, we need a general strike. Yeah, we need to overthrow capitalism. We need to smash it. And then the other people will come back and say, well, that's not very nice. That sounds kind of violent, And so the conversation goes like literally nowhere. And then a bunch of people unfriend each other into that.
So let me say
talk a little bit about that if you know how it works with your thinking.
I'm going to say this even though you're filming. Oh, man. I'm so sorry to people who love me right now. Marx was right that capitalism contains the seeds of its own destruction. Marx was wrong that it's the worker. Right? That's Marx's interpretation of capitalism. This is what I'm so sorry. People watching this video are going to be like, oh my God. Marx says, right, the worker of the world, they need to unite and overthrow systems of exploitation, take back ownership, and that makes perfect sense to a 19th century mind. That made perfect sense to 20-year-old Clint's mind, right? Like that's exactly how I thought the trajectory of capitalism would go. Exploitation would become too much and people would refuse to be exploited, and at some point there's a critical mass, the system falls. We have watched historically now for 150 years exploitation ramp up, infect our lives in multiple ways, from multiple points of entry, till it's soul-crushing, till people in China are throwing themselves out of windows because they can't be at work anymore, but they're not allowed to go home, so they'd rather die. And then the response is not, let's change how we make technology in China. It's to put nets on the building to catch people, and if you damage the net, you have to pay for it, but they send you right back to work. And that, to me, is exactly how capitalism expects to work. It expects to exploit you till you die of natural causes, which capitalism will define as having worked yourself to death, but that's natural. I want to say that it's not the workers that are going to undo capitalism, it's consumers. And the reason I want to make this distinction is because everyone's a consumer. For Marx, the people at the top are insulated by their power, but I think it's possible to convince somebody the way they consume is incredibly destructive. Self-destructive, destructive of other things, beings, plants, the world in general, the cosmos. We've got trash in space now. Like we are an incredibly destructive force. So what I want to say is, if we want to overthrow capitalism, it's got to start locally at the level of refusal, right? So I refuse to participate in capitalism. What does that look like right here, right? I mean, it might be the case that we can't overthrow the system in time to save everything or everybody, but we can save this place. We can teach people to save their place. But for us to connect those places, we have to understand ourselves as connected and interconnected. And not just plugged in, but interwoven. This is why I use the knitting example instead of the chain link or whatever. And so I think, it really requires work. One person can't do it. One small group of people maybe, but you could rethink how you live. I think farming collectives do a great job of this. I think it's possible to start addressing the problems of capitalism in our life by rethinking how we are willing to inhabit the world with others. And that is, it's a huge project. I don't know if we'll figure it out this semester, but it's definitely a project worth undertaking. But I also don't think we have a philosophical paradigm that gives us the tools to do the rethinking. I think Marx has a serious flaw. I think existentialism is way too interpersonal and not enough. And so I think we have to craft a new philosophical paradigm that we can inhabit as reflective beings concerned about not our own existence individually, but our existence as part of the whole. Right? I have to want existence to continue before I can care about my own existence. And we have that backwards. Right? There are too many people in this country who are happy to watch the global south sink into despair and destruction as long as they keep sending resources our way. And this is to Ella's point, right? We can't reverse engineer that. We can't give back what we've taken because that wouldn't fix it. We have to rethink how we consume and model that behavior to the people we have taught to consume. Right? China's ramping up their capitalist enterprise. Other countries are trying to become capitalists and functional capitalists. We did that. We can undo it, but we as a country aren't going to do it until we as individuals reject the idea that we are determined by these forces capitalism brings into our lives. Right? And it's like awfully high-minded of me. Right? But
no, I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, but think about what it is to leave here tonight and say, I'm going to stop consuming livestock. Right? I don't care. I literally do not care what your position is on eating meat. I care that you adopt a position that says there's no good reason for 60% of the mammals on the planet to be livestock. That's a problem. There's no good reason why we have crafted a world where 70% of the birds are chickens. I don't know if you know this or not, but when they redefine this era as the Anthropocene, scientists have advanced the idea that you can mark the Anthropocene in the geological record by the presence of domestic chicken bones. That's what marks us out as a geological force. How many chickens we eat. That's why you should stop. You should stop eating livestock because eating livestock is literally killing existence. I don't care if you like meat. I don't care if you like a good steak. Rethink how you consume, and that will reshape what is consumed, when it's consumed, where it's consumed, with whom it's consumed, right? And that's how we individually start to shift paradigms, right? Because people will say, oh my God, you're a vegan. Well, that's just crazy. We're supposed to eat meat. I don't have that problem, right? Because it's not about meat eating. It's about livestock. And what we're doing to uphold an industry that's undoing the wild, whatever the hell that actually means, but the wild, right? And then the animals, these 700 species being driven to extinction, are the wild. That's what we're killing. We're not going to let cattle die. We like the way they taste. We're not going to let pigs die. We have way too much affinity for bacon, right? Those animals are safe. We are going to let giraffes die, and lions die, and rhinoceri die, and aquatic things are going to die, and all of that in service of a juicy burger. What a terrible way to think of your existence, right? To think of your existence as in relationship to a well-done quarter-pound burger. It's just crazy to me. But I don't think that we're having that conversation. I think when you look at social media and the conversations that take place at the level of politics, they are focused on reducing what we consume, and they are focused on ideological disputes that are largely irrelevant because they don't get to the actual problem that is at the root.